But when you're doing back stuff, I'm just thinking maybe you're just a mechanic. He said, yeah, well, you can call me a mechanic if you want to, Wado, but I tell you this, when the pain gets bad enough, you'll pay me a lot more than you pay your mechanic to get this fixed. So he says that, I've heard him say that several times. He said, a person comes in, they've got a back problem, and he walks them through all the steps. He says, this is what's going to happen. He says, and you're going to need surgery eventually. And the person says, oh, no, I'm not having back surgery. He says, well, when the pain gets bad enough, you'll come back, and then we'll fix it. So this is where it happens, right here with the fibrocartilage. Most common back injury, cartilages between L4, L5, and L5S1, the intervertebral disc. The other thing about this soft tissue is, you know, we put weight on this tissue all of our lives. If your upper torso is in the erect position, there's weight on these fibrocartilage pads. My dad is 75 years old, and I've mentioned him before in this class. If you look at the back of us, you can't tell us apart. And he loves that because he's an old man, and I'm not an old man yet. I'm not far, but I'm not an old man yet. So people love that, you know. Is this your older brother, Wade? Oh, it's funny. Okay, so don't do that. If you want to come up and be friends with me, don't walk up to me at the LC football game on Saturday afternoon with my dad sitting there and go, hi, Dr. Warren, is this your brother? See, that's minus points. Your plus points for the other, that's minus. So the point here is to tell you that he's shorter than me now. We've always been the same height. When I got to be a senior in high school, we were the same height. But now we can stand next to each other, and I can tell he's almost a full inch shorter than I am. You know why? Because the weight of your body over the course of your life smashes these fibrocartilage pads between your intervertebral disc, and you get shorter when you get older for that reason. Okay, last thing here, two more, sorry. The symphysis of the knee joint, the symphysis of the hip joint. So the two pubic bones actually articulate with each other anteriorly by way of fibrocartilage. So it's a soft fibrocartilage pad there that articulates the two hip bones together. In the back, they articulate with the sacrum at the sacroiliac joint. But in the front, it's a fibrocartilage pad between the two pubic bones. And then finally, the menisci of the knee. We've talked about these a couple of times already. These are C-shaped. I've mentioned that already with fibrocartilage today. That sounds like a test question. C-shaped cartilage. C-shaped cartilage, yeah? C-shaped cartilage on the trachea. It doesn't go all the way around. The esophagus is on the back side, so you need room. C-shaped. Reinforced hose, C-shaped. C-shaped fibrocartilage in the knees. The opening in the C is medial. The opening is medial, which means the thickened portion of the fibrocartilage runs around the anterior side, it runs around the lateral sides, and it runs around the posterior side of the articulation between the tibia and the femur. So the condyles of the femur, they look like that, right? They articulate in the smooth condylar surfaces of the tibia. Y'all are learning the bones? That's where the articulation happens. But the bones don't touch each other. They're fibrocartilage pads between them, and they're C-shaped. So those condyles sit in those fibrocartilage pads. So you cannot move the medial condyle medial or anterior or posterior. And you cannot move the lateral condyle anterior or lateral or posterior because they sit in these pads. Now the knee doesn't take that as its only protection. The knee also puts collateral ligaments on the side and cruciate ligaments through the middle. So those help hold the knee in place too. But there's a lot of support keeping these two bones lined up the way they're supposed to be lined up. So if you have an injury where you push the condylar surfaces off, where you push them off their menisci supports, you are likely going to tear that cartilage. It is common for an individual with an anterior cruciate tear or a tibial collateral tear to also have a menisci tear. And frankly, the meniscus tear is scarier because they can drill holes in your bones and put new ligaments in there. But there's really not much to be done about the cartilage. You had a question?
You answered it.
Oh, okay, great. Okay, so the menisci of the knee, intervertebral. Now, the last thing your book doesn't mention here, but let's say it, right? Everybody knows about it. I don't know why Mary doesn't mention it here, but you need to know it. In your shoulders and in your hips. In your shoulders and in your hips, there's fibrocartilage. We call them labrum. 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 Now you're learning bones, are you not? Help me. What is the name of the fossa of the scapula that the humerus sits in? The glenoid fossa. Good. That labrum is called the glenoid labrum. So if you dislocate your shoulder, this normally happens anterior and inferior. I'm going to show you why later in this class. It happens this way and this way. It comes from a blow from the back or from the top to move the shoulder, to move the humerus out of the glenoid cavity. When that happens, it's likely that you will have torn the labrum. You're not going to be a pitcher anymore. That's the end of your career. You may be able to throw a baseball, but you will never be the same again once the labrum in the glenoid cavity is torn. The other one is in your acetabulum. I just said it. Sorry. I took your thunder. What is the name of the fossa that the head of the femur sits in? The acetabulum. And that labrum is called the acetabular labrum. And that one is injured sometimes. It is much less common. Can anybody tell me from what you've already seen in the skeleton? Why is it so much less common on the hips and the shoulders? Labrum tears. How does the articulation look different with the shoulder and the hip? Have you already seen this in the lab? The head of the humerus in the lab. Take the head of the humerus and put it where it goes on the glenoid cavity. Does that look like a very secure joint? No? Why not? It doesn't surround. Yeah. The glenoid cavity is shallow.